Thank you very much, Virginia. Let's get more now on that new report out this morning that found Australia can produce electricity with no net carbon emissions if a national policy and a carbon price can be agreed upon. Energy and Environment Minister Josh Frydenberg joins us now all the way from Washington. Good morning, Minister.
Nice to be with you, Michael.
OK, over to you. The Energy Peak Body and the CSIRO both say a carbon price is the way of ensuring no net carbon emissions by 2050. Why not?
Well, there are lots of mechanisms that you can use to reduce your emissions, and as you know, we've been very successful in beating our first Kyoto target. We're on track to beat our 2020 target by 224 million tonnes, and we expect to beat our 2030 target, which is reducing our carbon footprint by 26 to 28% by 2030 on our 2005 levels. Now, we're doing that with a number of different mechanisms, including an emissions reduction fund, an energy productivity plan, the renewable energy target, as well as the work of the Clean Energy Finance Corporation and ARENA. And I think we're on the right track, although we continually review our policies.
But this is the peak energy body, and importantly, Australia's peak scientific body, the CSIRO, saying, yes, all that's fine, but the carbon price is the most effective way of getting to that aim.
Well, as you know, we had a big fight with the Labor Party at the 2013 election over the carbon tax. We won that convincingly, and we were successful in abolishing the carbon tax. We're not going back down that route.
Even with this advice from the CSIRO?
We're certainly not going back down the route of a carbon tax. What we will do, though, is look for world's best practice in trying to find the lowest cost of abatement, and the policies that we have in place are working. I'm here in the United States exchanging notes with the administration on a range of measures that they're using, whether it's energy efficiency measures, getting more gas into the market, because of course gas has half the emissions of coal, or other mechanisms, for example wind power, which they use a lot in Texas, where the current US Energy Secretary is from.
I'll get to your meeting with US Energy Secretary Rick Perry in just a moment. Speaking of gas, Josh Frydenberg, lots of scepticism about the Prime Minister's claim yesterday, which he has since walked back from to some extent, that imposing that export ban on gas, that potential export ban on gas, would halve, if not more, the wholesale price. Is that achievable?
Well, I think Bill Shorten is being mischievous in the extreme, or indeed misleading, because the Prime Minister never said that all gas users will see a halving of their gas price. What he was pointing out to was the fact that some energy users are being quoted contracts for gas at $20 a gigajoule, which is double what you should be paying, or more than double what you should be paying if you take into account what is called the netback price, which would be the price overseas for gas minus the transportation and the liquefaction costs. So the Prime Minister's announcement of this new energy domestic gas mechanism has been very warmly received from everyone from the Manufacturers Council to the Grattan Institute to the Australian Industry Group.
Although the Australian Petroleum Producers and Exploration Association does raise the issue, as they see it, of sovereign risk in terms of discouraging potential investment in Australia if these export bans are slapped on.
Well, I don't believe that is the case, and clearly we have a real tight market domestically when it comes to gas, and we have more than 65,000 jobs that are in gas-dependent industries. They range from chemicals to paper to glass to food manufacturing, and we can't afford to see those jobs lost and those companies put under sustained economic pressure because of gas prices which are higher than the international market. So I think everyone who watches this closely recognise that the government's actions were the right actions. These are hopefully temporary, targeted measures, but it will depend upon the company's ability to get more gas into the market, so we don't see a continuation of the current gas problem.
Realistically, they'll need to be more than temporary, won't they? These will be more or less permanent, these export bans, to achieve the aims you're after.
Well, let's just see how we go, because the companies understand how important it is for them to produce more gas for the domestic market on the East Coast. We export, Michael, about 2/3 of what we produce, and the Australian Energy Market Operator had predicted shortfalls in the domestic market from the summer of 2018-19 across the states of Victoria, South Australia, New South Wales, and later on in Queensland. And that was completely unacceptable for the government. Now, one of the other ways we can improve the gas situation is to get the state governments that currently have moratoriums and bans on the development of unconventional gas lifted. And I'm talking particularly of Victoria and also the Northern Territory, because both those jurisdictions have enormous amount of gas under the ground, which they're denying the households and the employers and manufacturers in their own states and territory.
And finally, just about out of time, you're there in Washington ahead, of course, the Prime Minister's visit to meet the President next week. It's all about rebuilding the US-Australia relationship, consolidating it. How did your meeting with Rick Perry go? A man known to all of us, of course, through his various runs for the Republican nomination for the presidency.
Well, it was a great meeting of nearly an hour in length, and we talked about everything from renewable energy to gas to carbon capture and storage. And later on today I'm heading to Texas to see a carbon capture and storage plant that the Obama administration indeed had provided over $150 million towards. So we both our countries, Rick Perry and I, both understand that you need an all of the above strategy, that you can't put all your eggs in one basket, that we are transitioning to a lower emissions future, but energy security and energy affordability is absolutely paramount. And I think the relationship, whether it's in the energy space or the national security space or the economic space, is very, very strong. It doesn't need rebuilding, and the visit by the Prime Minister next week will be just an important continuation of what is our most important bilateral partnership.
Okay, famously you once called Donald Trump a dropkick. How's that gone down in the official meetings?
Well, no one's raised it, Michael, but I can tell you that
they all know it.
As I've said subsequently, I could have been a bit more judicious in my comments, but clearly the administration is dealing with us very positively. I also met with another cabinet minister, the head of the Environmental Protection Agency, as well as a number of senators and congressmen on the Hill, and their view of Australia could not be better.
Josh Frydenberg in Washington, thank you so much for joining Breakfast this morning.
Good to be with you, Michael.